Today we're building a habitat that made me feel right at home in hell. Because today we're building a habitat for the Tasmanian Devil. Let the craziness begin. This week has been a lot. Because not only was it my birthday this week, but also I finally got to pick up my physical degree. So now I can officially say that I graduated in urban design. Well, actually, Google Translate says urban planning. And I have continuously said, oh yeah, I'm studying urban design. And here's me going to try and explain this, so be wary. But the way that I've always tried to explain it is urban design and urban planning are like two facets within the same subject. And the names are quite descriptive because urban planning, it's all about planning. Like you're looking up the rules and the laws, looking up what you can't and can do. And you're also trying to figure out what you want to do and what you don't want to do, like what you want to avoid. So with urban planning, you're more drawing up the borders of your plan or what you want to do. Whereas with urban design, as the name already implies, you're more about designing the plan. You're drawing up the plan, visualizing it, making sure that you get across how the plan will look like upon realization and such. So you're really just visualizing the plan. And I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that I'm more about the design side. Not saying that urban planning is not important, because it definitely is. You need to know what you can and can't do, what you want to do. Like you need to know those borders of the entire project. But I'm just more about designing stuff. And also when it comes to urban planning, when you think like, oh, all the rules and the laws and such, like, oh yeah, that's 25 pages. Yeah, think again, because that's like 350 pages that you need to read. Because there's the rules and laws, and then there's the exemptions and the clarification and everything. And you basically do need to read everything. And my brain already starts spinning just thinking about that. So yeah, I just want to visualize stuff. But to add further confusion to like, oh, what urban design versus urban planning? Yeah, my college also decided halfway through me studying to change the name of the course. So for a good year, I was just like, what the fuck am I actually studying? So that didn't help. But yeah, that's basically me trying to explain what I was studying, what I graduated in, because the translation that Google Translate gave me was urban planning, but that's like, yeah, but that's like one facet, but not really the facet that I want to go into when working, which is also a terrifying thing of just like, oh yeah, I now need to be an adult. I need to work. Oh, I was already working, but it's like, it's different. Anyways, that's me trying to explain things. So if you feel woozy at any point, that's a known side effect of poison explanations. You know, you get woozy, you might get a like bloody nose. Eventually, you will just lose your sight as your brain starts to collapse in on itself, creating a black hole that will just suck up everything and everyone. Yeah, this solar system had a lot of more planets than it has now. But then Poison started to explain things. Now we have far fewer. Earth is next. You are all doomed. Have fun. Anyways, let's move on to the actual build. So, yay, birthday. Yay, finally picked up my degree. Still don't really know how to explain what I studied. Anyways, let's move on to the actual build, but before that I need to point out two things. First, in the previous video I pointed out a comment, and I always like want to make it a little bit goofy, like lighthearted, although sometimes that does lead to the thing of where I want to make it lighthearted and goofy, but it comes off as slightly rude. And like, I am in no way trying to like, oh yeah, look at this comment, look at how ridiculous it is. Like, that's not it. So I'm sorry if it came off like that, of me like trying to put the commenter on the spot. It's always just like trying to keep it lighthearted and such. And usually it's like, oh yeah, this is actually a very interesting and insightful comment. But I am a goofball or just a force of chaos, and I want to make it kind of goofy. So sorry if it comes off as like, oh, Poison is trying to flame or roast the commenter. It's not. It's just me trying to make it goofy or lighthearted. Anyways, the following thing that I wanted to bring up is It's interesting enough a comment, or actually it's two comments. Both of them were going into like, oh, the realism of Naturalis, of like, oh, the crocodiles, they wouldn't have been outside in a Dutch zoo because it's too cold for them here, so they would have like a completely indoor habitat. When it comes to the kiwi bird habitat, oh, they wouldn't be in a habitat that they are now, which is just a regular outside habitat, because they're nocturnal animals, so they would have like a completely like nocturnal habitat or like an indoor habitat. And both of them are completely valid. Like, I know that like, oh, crocodiles, upon further thinking, like, yes, they wouldn't really have a habitat like this in the Netherlands because they would freeze to death, which might actually work if I like put an icicle or ice cream shop next door and they be like, yeah, here, have your frozen alligator or crocodile tail. They're fresh, really fresh. You can see them freezing, oh, in the next door habitat. That's good to work. That's probably not what Naturalis does, but it does actually, like, this is why I find these comments interesting. It's just like, they do give me ideas. I probably don't want to build a nocturnal habitat for the kiwi birds, but I might want to build like a completely indoor habitat for the crocodiles, so that the habitat that we have already built is like their summer habitat. When it gets like warm enough, they will be moved there, but at winter, when it just gets colder, they get moved to the indoor habitat. But yeah, the ground or the base thing here is like, when it comes to Naturalis, don't expect full realism. I will choose what looks pretty over what is realistic, because sometimes what is realistic will lead to a more base design, whereas if I choose something really pretty, which might not be completely realistic, it might lead to a more like outrageous design, which I usually later on end up liking a lot more, just because it like adds some more pizzazz. Even though realistically it's like, oh yeah, this habitat wouldn't work for that animal, or this building wouldn't work, but it looks pretty. So in no way am I like trying to shame these commenters. These are very insightful and helpful comments, but I also need to say like, oh yeah, Naturalis, I'm not going for full realism and such. But do keep the comments coming, because as I said, the crocodile comment actually makes me want to build like an indoor habitat for crocodiles. Like build like a complete indoor habitat, indoor building for like a lot more like reptiles and such. Because a lot of the reptiles, as far as I know that we have in Plant Zoo, like they wouldn't really be able to live in like a Dutch zoo just in the outside, because it would be too cold for them, or would be like maybe too humid or too dry. I'm always kind of confused there when it's like the Netherlands, because it's just like, yeah, we have water everywhere. Probably the humidity that like just makes me go completely crazy in the summer. Well, that and like, this is just a thing in the Netherlands. I think actually in most like northwestern European countries, none of the houses are built with air conditioning. So when it gets hot, we just start melting. And that's like funny whenever someone is like, oh yeah, in the US it's like burning up. Like if you put those same temperatures in Europe, nobody would survive. Because at least in like the US, you have like air conditioning built into most houses. Here you don't. Here you just die. Anyways, let's move on to the actual build. So again, just to summarize, keep the comments coming, and if I sometimes come off a little bit rudish, it's never really my intent. It's just me trying to make it lighthearted, but failing. Anyways, let's move on to the demons. Actually, they're not really demons, but they do sure sound like one. And I also, when it came to the Tasmanian Devils, I thought they were good climbers. I think from like the small bit of research that I did, younger Tasmanian Devils are better climbers. The older ones just aren't. Maybe, like, please put it down in the description if you know more about it. But I had this whole idea of like, oh yeah, I want this rock in the middle where they can climb up and scream. Because like that's one of the most important things of Tasmanian Devils, is just them screaming. It's just that they're all emo. Or they're all just like hard rock fans and they just like to scream. This is going weird places, but anyways, so I had that idea of like, oh yeah, let's build some like rock in the middle and make it so that they can climb it. In the end, it was just like, yeah, build the entire habitat, build the rock, and then they couldn't climb. Good thing that I didn't make the rock too high and I could actually make it so that they could just walk on top. But yeah, anyways, I also actually looked up like, oh yeah, what would a Tasmanian Devil habitat look like, or at least the indoor section? How would that look like? Because I also, when doing a slight bit of research, I never do a lot of research, so if there's anything wrong with my habitats when it comes to realism, I would like to hear it. I can't say that I will listen to it because again, I will choose something pretty over something realistic, but I am always happy to like attempt it and see if it works, see if it looks pretty, and if it looks pretty, then I will keep it. Such as the case of this habitat, I figured out like, oh yeah, Tasmanian Devils, they are kind of solitary, like they're not really, well, Tasmanian Devils are kind of weird because they're like, when it comes to food and such, they will sort of not hunt, but they will like go for food in groups, because then you can like defend it and like eat everything up very quickly and not have any other bigger predators scare them off. But then when it comes to like their dens and burrows and such, those are usually, as far as I've researched, solitary. So I had to like make multiple compartments for the Tasmanian Devils, whereas usually I would just make one big area for all of them to sleep in. But with Tasmanian Devils, it was like, yeah, that's not how they go. Like, as far as I've researched, the biggest group of Tasmanian Devils in one den would be like a mother and all of her like children, which are a lot as far as I know. But anyways, so I looked up like videos of like zoos and looking up like, oh, how do their habitats look like? And it's always like the videos of like, oh yeah, this is Tasmanian Devil and this and this and this. And I'm just like, I don't care about that. I want to know how the habitat looks like. Show me a zoomed in or zoomed in portion of like the fence. Even though there's like these videos are like very interesting to listen to and look up. But because I'm always looking them up when I'm actually building something, I'm just like, mute. Pause on that frame because there I can see the fence. How high is that? Stand next to its presenter because then I can kind of figure out how high is that fence. Oh, it's 1 meter or something. I have done that with the caracal habitat actually, now that I think about it, where I just muted the video and I was just like, yeah, can you stand next to it? Like, I know that you're like trying to teach me something about, actually the caracal habitat was based on a lion habitat, but like I can figure out how high or how thick those fences are if you stand next to it. This is not in any way saying like, oh yeah, fat shaming or anything. It's just like, you know, you kind of know the measurements of like, this is how tall a human is and usually how broad a human is. And then you can figure out, oh, this is how high that fence is. This is how broad or thick those walls or that glass is and such. But yeah, I muted a lot of videos because a lot of the videos when it came to Tasmanian Devils, they were like outdoors. And then it's like, oh yeah, they can kind of climb. As far as I know, the younger ones can climb a lot better than the older ones, or are more inclined to climb, I think. I don't really know for sure. But yeah, that was the entire idea for like this habitat. Was like, oh yeah, make it low so that they don't climb things, so that they can't get out of it, because I don't want really high fences. And then later figured out that, oh yeah, in Plant Zoo, Tasmanian Devils don't climb. Like, I've seen so many pictures of Tasmanian Devils in trees, and then it's like, yeah, this is probably a younger one. The older ones don't climb as much or aren't as good at it. Also, yes, I made the habitat twice as large. This is the reason why this video took twice as long. Well, it's that, and I couldn't figure out how to do the buildings for a longest period of time because I wanted this habitat to feel really open and such. But then it was also like, oh yeah, I need 4 compartments because I want like 4 Tasmanian Devils in here. So I need at least 4 compartments. So I need an adequate sized building, but I want to keep it open. So me trying to figure that out, I didn't record any of that because that would just be like, yeah, me staring at the screen and just being hopeless. Just, you see all the hope draining from my face of just like, how am I going to do this? I have no idea. In the end, I figured something out. Also, I figured out, hey, not every habitat needs to have like an indoor viewing section. Especially with like Tasmanian Devils, it's just like, yeah. You see like all these 4 compartments and yeah. Not every habitat needs to have an indoor viewing area. It's fun, but not every habitat needs that. The kiwi bird habitat actually probably also wouldn't have that. But I just like building them. Anyways, let's move back to the actual habitat. So here is that giant rock in the middle that I described earlier on. And I really thought like, oh yeah, I want them to climb this. Luckily enough, because I was like, oh yeah, they are going to climb it. I don't know how far they jump, which is the most often thing, or most often the thing that I search first is like, how high can these animals jump? Because then I know how high the fences need to be, because you don't want these fences or the animals to be able to jump out of the habitat. But here it was just like, oh yeah, don't want it too high so that they can't jump out. I also don't want to make this entire climbing mountain. I just wanted this hill. But here you can see me placing down trunks because I thought they could climb. They can't. I kept the trunks though because I just thought they looked nice. I just raised the earth up a little bit just so that they could just walk up easily. Because I like the idea of just you're standing there, you look in the middle of this habitat and there's just a Tasmanian Devil just staring at you, screaming. I just like the idea of them screaming. I like the idea of any animal screaming in your face. Maybe I need to build a llama habitat next, because then I can have animals that spit in your face. Anyways, moving on, because I think also somebody mentioned like, take a drink anytime Poison says anyways. I would add to that, anytime I say alright, yeah, and because that's just like the moments where my brain, like I talk too fast and then my brain needs to catch up. So anytime I say anyways, alright, or yeah, it's just me like rebooting, like trying to get my brain up to speed with what I'm saying. So yeah, if you are taking a drink anytime I say alright, anyways, yeah, you might end up in the hospital. We now have the side effect of Poison explaining and the drinking game of Poison. I wouldn't advise doing both at once because A, you probably want to continue living on this earth. B, you probably don't want your stomach pumped. Although, to be fair, Earth is doomed. There's probably already someone whose brain is just collapsing in on itself and creating a black hole. Somewhere. Maybe in New Zealand. That would be kind of funny. Probably actually, like looking at the statistics, it's probably in the US because that's like the biggest demographic of you guys basically. Surprisingly, the Netherlands is like third. Or yeah, I think the Netherlands is third and then UK is fourth. France is second. At least it's somewhere in that range. Maybe UK is second. But I think for sure that France is third, which is interesting. Anyways, let's move on back to the actual build before any of your guys' brains start to turn to mush, which is probably already too late. But yeah, so I made this habitat twice as big because I do actually want to kind of keep in mind like, oh yeah, the size requirements for the animals. A lot of the times it's like really right on the edge. It's like really just like 1 square meter and then it would be too small. But then I immediately thought like, oh yeah, I want to have like this sort of, what is it called? This tunnel going underneath the pot. Figuring out how to make that pot work was hell. Also, I made a mistake here that I only right now see. So when I record in OBS, which is also the software that I use to stream. I forgot to turn off the overlay, so there's just a square in the bottom right now, which I can't get rid of because it's just like imprinted in the video or in like the visual. So I can't get rid of that box. Just imagine that that's like the box that you can scream in. So you just touch that box and you start screaming. Like if you need to mentally scream, which we all do need to do at some times. Like most of you guys will just like scream into a pillow. You can also just touch that box and just start screaming into it. I give you permission to do that. Just try and make fun of like Poison forgetting to turn off his overlay while building. So yeah, that would usually in a stream be where my face would be. But Poison, when he starts building at 3 AM, doesn't really recognize that like, oh yeah, I forgot to turn that overlay off. The camera is off, so that's why there's no face, but the overlay is still there. Oops. So yeah. Anyways, when it came to this habitat, it was also just a lot of rocks. Just a lot. I've also become basically a simp for the stalagmites in this game. Just because, look at them. They make for the perfect fake stones. Because these stones would probably be fake or would be like concrete or such. They would not be natural stones. But it just makes for like the best, just like, if you want to have like just that fake look in a way of like that you have in a lot of real habitats where it's just like, oh yeah, the ground just like drops. Usually it's like with water or something, but you have it in a lot of habitats where it's just like, oh yeah, there's a drop, there's a fake rock wall at the edge of the habitat. These stalagmites work really well for that. Also, they're recoverable, so that works even better because then you can use it for every habitat. But it's a lot of those. I just put on like the, what is it, the random rotation, and then I just spam them. Like if you think like, oh, there's any thought behind all of those stalagmites, there's usually not. I do try and like break it up a bit and place things higher and lower and such to make it look more natural, but a lot of it is just spamming those rocks close enough together so that they blend into each other and make one wall. And then there's a lot of grass, of course, because they are carnivorous, so that means that they won't eat grass, which means that I can go a little bit more crazy with all the plants. There's still the overlay, the camera overlay. I hope I've turned it off. If not, then it will also be in the next video. Although the next video will probably be a different habitat, or at least not in the Oceania surf area. Because yes, I've made a map of Naturalis and I've named it Oceania Surf instead of Australian Surf. So now it's the Oceania Surf, which actually works a lot better, just Ocean Surf. But yeah, I think I've built a little bit too much here, so now my brain is just like short-circuiting. So the next step that is actually a renovation. The speedy cats are gone because I wanted to make the central area, basically the beginning of Naturalis, with where now the grizzly bears are and the amber leopard and such. I wanted to make another habitat there because it just felt very sparse with the amount of animals there. So I kicked out the cheetahs and gave that habitat to the central area, and now I actually have no idea what animal I want to place there. I don't want a carnivorous animal, but I don't know for sure. Maybe that's where the llamas will come in. Just spitting in your face in the central area of Naturalis. I really like making those maps. For some reason it's weirdly peaceful. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. Throw a Tasmanian Devil at the like button, and if you want to see more, throw a black hole at the subscribe button. Again, Earth is doomed. Mars is next. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye bye.